Before we get started, it's only appropriate that we have our invocation, and I'll ask Andre Haynes to lead us with that.
Morning, everyone. Please bow with me. Dear God, thank you for life and strength today. Thank you for the desire and the ability to be here. Thank you for the election process and the ability to speak to the candidates and find out their opinions about issues that govern our lives. Give us wisdom today, give us special insight, give us courage, and continue to help us to be the best we can be and to make the best lives possible. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Andre. Next up, of course, would be the Pledge of Allegiance. Actually, can I grab one of the kids to lead us in the pledge? Improvising here. The flag is over here, draping. You okay with that? You want to do it?
Yeah.
Hey, let's do it. So everyone turn.
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job. Okay, my name is Andrew Martin. I'm your moderator today. Brief background, I'm a state assemblyman, District 9, which is in the southwest corner of the valley, current candidate for state controller. In the state assembly, I sit on this Judiciary Committee, and have a keen interest in certainly all candidates, so hopefully we'll have a spirited discussion, but I do want to go over the rules of the road here, and then I'll introduce the panel members and we'll dive right in. I'm going to remind everybody that this is an interview. This is not a debate. Too bad, because I like debates. I'm going to give you about a minute and a half to introduce yourselves, 30 seconds for each panelist to ask a question, and a minute or so for the candidates to respond. The general rule is, since we have a lot of panelists and not that many candidates, sometimes that's going to flip-flop. There'll be one question per panelist, either for one specific candidate or the same question for all candidates, which obviously with two people, that's not too tall a task. This is a forum to educate the public, not to air personal grievances. Candidates are not allowed to speak about other candidates, so it's really meant to be educational. However, if I feel as the moderator that you're not answering the question, you'll learn as you all want to be judges, I'll ask that I might redirect you. So in essence, hopefully we'll have a nice conversation. Everything is being recorded, and it's all for posterity. And at this point, I would like to introduce the panelists. Actually, do you all have microphones?
We're all sharing.
You're all sharing. Okay, so maybe I'll just do it this way. I'll just read the names here. And if I mispronounce your names, understand that I'm a numbers guy. I'm an accountant. So bear with me and feel free to correct pronunciation. We have Robert Lauer, Veterans of Politics member, U.S. Army. Patrick Llewellyn, Veterans of Politics guest panelist. And after this, I'm not going to be able to see the description, so I apologize. So feel free to ad-lib. Lily Babcock, Stuart Tenner, Angie Morelli, Jason Brooks, Forrest Darby, Byron Brooks, and Paul Paddock. So welcome, everybody. Let's see, we packed them in, but I suspect since this is a long afternoon, people will come and go. And certainly, this should be a lot of fun. Okay, I will do my best to hold us on schedule. And to that event, I'm also the timekeeper. And let the games begin. Okay, first up, in the Department 22, we have Judge Susan Johnson, who's the incumbent, and Jacob Hafter. So I would ask that Judge Johnson introduce herself, and then I will go to Jacob Hafter.
My name is Susan Johnson. I first want to thank you all for having me this morning. I have been the district court judge in Department 22 for over 7 years now. I primarily hear civil and construction defect matters, although I do hear criminal matters on an overflow basis. Obviously, I can't have a criminal assignment because I hear construction defect, and sometimes I'm in trial for 5.5, 9 months, something like that, so I can't give someone a right to speedy trial. However, other than that, I have been a resident here in Clark County, Nevada since November of 1963, or 50 years. I have been a member of the Nevada State Bar for over 28 years. My background includes, whenever I first became a member of the State Bar, I worked in a law firm called Rawlings, Olson & Cannon, where we handled primarily insurance, civil rights, defense, security defense, malpractice defense, legal, accounting, medical, things of that nature. In about 92, I started working for a personal injury law firm, plaintiff's personal injury law firm, and in 1994, I went out on my own, and for 12 years, I was out on my own and had my own practice. There, my practice was primarily a boutique kind of practice where I did just about everything from family, estate, personal injury, practice, corporate law, things of that nature, just about everything that you can think of. Also, in 92, my career kind of turned quasi-judicial a little bit because then I was an arbitrator. And since that time, I had arbitrated over 600 cases. I've been a mediator on both appointed by the 8th Judicial District and private. I have been a judge pro tem for the Las Vegas Justice Court, a hearing master for child support. Pardon me?
10 seconds.
Oh, okay. And I've also been a Nevada, a settlement judge for the Nevada Supreme Court. Obviously, since I was doing a lot of quasi-judicial stuff, then I decided to run. And I've been a judge since January of 07. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hafter.
Morning, my name is Jacob Hafter. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, graduated Bonanza High School, went to George Washington and got a degree in EMS management. I've been a paramedic for 15 years. I'm married, father of 4, and in 2005, after being in several different places, including Philadelphia and Cleveland, my family moved back to Nevada. We moved to Reno. In 2007, we moved back down to Las Vegas. Actually, my 4th child was born in Las Vegas also, so she's 2nd generation Las Vegan. My daughter, my 3rd, is 2nd generation Nevada, which I'm kind of happy about. I primarily practice in civil rights, constitutional law, administrative law, regulatory law, ensuring that due process and other constitutional rights are secured for the people of our state.
Thank you. Wow, you have 30 seconds left. In that time, I was remiss. I do want to make sure that we acknowledge our sponsors for today's Rhythm Kitchen. If you haven't dined here, it's a wonderful place, actually. I've been here quite often. Real Water, which is Andre Lagomarsino. I apologize, I'm better with numbers. Attorney. So I do want to acknowledge that. Thank you to our sponsors for graciously sponsoring the event. Also, one other housekeeping point, between 1:45 p.m. and 2:14, not 2:15, but 2:14, we will have a break. Okay, so you ready for some questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, again, as a reminder, the panelists will have 30 seconds to ask a question. It's not a political platform. Please ask a question, and you'll have 1 minute to respond, and they can direct the question to either of you and or both of you. So who wants, of the panelists, who wants to...
Let's start down with Mr. Paul.
As I mentioned before, I'm actually going to recuse myself from this session because I have a personal relationship.
Hold the microphone up closer.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
I have a relationship with both these candidates. I've known both Jacob and Susan for quite a while. I used to work at the U.S. Attorney's Office as a prosecutor And Eric Johnson, Susan's husband, was my supervisor. Jacob and I had an attorney-client type relationship. We've become friends. So in the interest of transparency and fairness, I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to sit and vote on this panel.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Good morning. I guess my question is, Mr. Hafter, you're looking to take over the seat that's currently occupied. What changes are you bringing to the table? What type of things would you like to see implemented that would make a difference in the community?
I appreciate the question. I was a transactional attorney for the first half of my legal career, never even been inside a courtroom, and by happenstance found my way inside a courtroom. And because of that, I did not grow up in the traditional lawyer sense. I didn't grow up in a firm learning to litigate by following a mentor and learning all their bad habits, unfortunately. I opened up the rules of civil procedure, and I expected that the rules would be followed, and that's how I learned how to litigate. And it's quite disappointing to both me and my clients, as well as other members of the bar, that often in our courts, the rules of civil procedure are not followed. And my primary goal is to ensure that the rules of civil procedure are followed, that the Constitution is defended and upheld, that appropriate decisions of rule and law are made in a timely and speedy manner, and that there's civility in the courtroom, and that somebody leaves a courtroom feeling that they had fair justice provided, not that it was rigged because of who may be representing one side or another. And that's really the goal and the platform of why I'm running today.
Thank you. Next up.
Hello, it's on. I only have one question. What party are each one of you? First, Jacob.
I'm a Republican.
Okay, and
Republican.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Jason.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us here today on the panel. The question is going to be for both of you, so both of you can answer this question. Judge, since you are a sitting judge, I know you work tirelessly for the community by representing us as a judge. But I'd like to know what both of you do outside of your daily work life that helps our community, helps the people within our community who aren't as involved in, working with attorneys or working with judges. How do you portray yourself to the rest of the community, among the common folk, if you will, who you don't see every day in your courtroom?
Okay. I am very active in the community. First of all, currently I am the foundation chair for my Rotary Club in Green Valley. I'm also a past president of the Green Valley Rotary Club, and of course we're a very active club. My husband and I have also been very active with our schools, particularly with fundraising for our girls volleyball teams at Green Valley High School. My husband and I still today, even though our kids have long since graduated, we still help put together the sports program to help generate funds for uniforms, things of that nature. And I don't know if any of you know this, but bottom line, the school district doesn't contribute any money toward uniforms and things of that nature. And so our programs have generated, I would guess, in the realm of around $50,000 at least in profit for school uniforms, balls, things of that nature. I have also been very active. I was a member of the Henderson Chamber of Commerce before I became a judge. I was a member of Junior League of Las Vegas until I went sustaining in '95. Golly, I have been a Rainbow Girl since I was 14 years old.
10 seconds, please.
So I am very active in the community. And I'm also sports-minded. My husband and I like to run half and whole marathons with our kids. So we've been volleyball parents, soccer parents, so we're very active in the community.
Thank you. I don't wish to be rude up here, but we have a lot of panels with a lot of questions and a lot of judges, so bear with us. Half my family is from the Deep South, and Deep South, we tend to let people talk. So it's a contradiction to me to cut you off, but bear with me. Okay, your question, sir.
From Boy Scouts to Girl Scouts, on behalf of both of all four of my children are actively involved. I'm actively involved in education through supporting various different private schools throughout the community and helping various different organizations throughout the community, mostly in a religious nature, one way or another. Generally what I do when it comes to community involvement is find specific needs. For example, there's a big issue in this community about sexual abuse of children, especially within the clergy and the like. And so this Wednesday, my family and I are underwriting a program that has been actually signed on by every synagogue of any faith, as well as the Jewish Federation, where we're bringing in some of the world-renowned speakers on sexual abuse in the Jewish community for the Jewish Federation. That'll be hosted at the Adelson campus, and that's open to the community in an effort to inspire awareness in the community of these issues. That's just one example of the many things that we're doing to help with the community. But it's hard for me to separate that between non-working life and working life, because
10 seconds,
a majority of my cases are actually pro bono. I take cases because the issues need to be represented, which is why I work 12, 18-hour days. And so there's a blurring, and that's why I have open relationships with North Las Vegas, with Baptist churches, with Episcopalian churches, and not just the Jewish community because of that relationship.
Thank you again. I really hate to interrupt when you're on a roll, but if you're going to be a judge, you know all about brevity. Okay. Again, I'm just trying to get more people involved with the questions and make sure everyone gets a chance in the panels in the time that we have allowed. Who's next here? Angie? Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello? Okay. I have multiple questions, but this is my most important one. I want to get out. What are your guys' thoughts on judicial activism or jury nullification?
There is a case called Cohen versus Leochi that specifically addresses jury nullification, and I certainly don't allow that in my courtroom. Judicial activism, I certainly don't engage in that. My job is to make sure that the parties follow the law. I'm there to interpret the law, not to make laws. I am a member of the third branch of government. So if someone has a disagreement with what the law says, in my view, they should be complaining to their legislators, such as Mr. Martin, as opposed to the judges. We're there, again, just to interpret the law and to, help interpret the law and tell the parties what the law is.
Okay, thank you.
I actually agree with Judge Johnson on that. I would like to add, though, that it takes a judge, there's a requirement that there is a knowledge of the law. And so, for example, if two parties are briefing an issue and they completely miss a legal topic, for example, if you're dealing with who should be on the ballot and you as a court are not, none of the issues are raised about due process or freedom of speech or the like on a constitutional level, I think that it's your responsibility as a judge to make sure that all issues that may be relevant to a case are addressed by the parties. And to that end, it would be appropriate for a judge to say, here's an issue you may have missed, please brief me on that for your position, and allow each side to be heard on that issue. But the reality is judges should be interpreting and upholding laws, not creating laws.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Stuart.
Good morning. In 1962, Spiro Agnew went from being a Baltimore County executive to vice president 7 years. Associate Justice Joseph Story went from being sworn into the bar to a Supreme Court justice in 10 years. I'd like to ask each of you, I'd like for each of you to pretend that you're Supreme Court nominees and I'm a U.S. Senator. And I'd like to know, there's a case currently before the Supreme Court, NLRB versus Canada. It discusses how executive power, the presidency, versus congressional and legislative power is balanced. I would like to hear each of your opinions on that issue as completely as you can give me in a short period of time.
How they're balanced?
Well, how the Supreme Court is going to look at whether or not executive power in the Constitution as opposed to the legislative power given to the Congress in the Constitution. That case addresses recess appointments and whether or not Congress gets to have greater say over that. And I'm hoping you could address
Well, I think we're getting into some history.
Not that case specifically, but just the issue generally of the balance between the two from a judicial point of view.
Okay, and I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think we're getting into a lot of history here back with Marbury versus Madison, where they talk about the three branches of government, and they're all supposed to be equal, and there is a checks and balances, obviously, between the three branches of government, and they're supposed to all be on equal plane. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but they're all supposed to be on equal plane.
I was kind of more interested in hearing how you would look at such cases from the point of view of being a judge. I've read Marbury versus Madison and I'm aware of how it was decided, but I'm more curious about how you would view if you rose to, if today's endorsement and your career rose you to a Supreme Court justice, how you would look at judging such cases.
I guess I just don't understand your question.
I'm interested in.
I'm going to have
It's a little
to,
complicated. Can we move on?
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna-
we have a few more minutes.
yeah.
Maybe Mr.
unfortunately,
Hafter understands it. I'm sorry, I just don't.
I'm going to give Jacob a chance. I tend to be very informal, so bear with me here. I'm going to give you a chance to try to respond to the question,
Okay.
but I'm urging the panelists to keep the questions short and focused, because it's the time resource that we're working with.
Assuming that a case was before me that was both ripe and justiciable, the question then becomes, I think, would I as a judge enforce the Constitution? I think one of the issues and frustrations that we have as citizens is that we see abuses of power occur all the time, such as the president engaging in legislation through executive orders, and nobody's stopping it, and nobody is exercising that control or balance of powers, which I think, as long as it is justiciable and properly before you as a court, you should be doing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My question is rather ambiguous. In the sense, I want to know how you guys believe or see that the education system here has affected the courts.
Go ahead.
I'm laughing because this has been a trying week for me and my family, because after supporting a private school for years and having my wife volunteer full-time at that school for years, we pulled our kids out this week from that school because the education levels were substandard. We found, for example, math wasn't being taught in second grade for an entire month. It's just unacceptable. Unfortunately, so this has been an issue that I've been tackling with my wife, education, very personally for the last week. I can tell you, though, that it is frustrating when courts become politicized because of lobbies, and they start rendering opinions that affect policy more because of what's popular and because of the fact that maybe a judge is an elected official, as opposed to recognizing what's true and proper interpretation of the law. And I think, quite honestly, that the teachers union in Las Vegas and in Nevada has just become overwhelmingly dominant to control policy as opposed to law.
Thank you.
You want me to answer the question?
Yes, please. And as a matter of protocol, when the panelists are directing the questions, I ask that you specify who you wish to answer first. That way it's clear amongst the candidates. Or if you just want one to answer, that's perfectly acceptable as well. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I took your question to be something different. I can tell you that we encourage, as a court, the children to come into the courtroom and teenagers to come into the courtroom to actually see what we do every day. I also hold mock trials for the kids so that they can learn the different roles of the, not only the judge, the prosecutor, the defense lawyers, the clerk, things of that nature. So we certainly encourage the kids to come into our courtrooms and see what we're all about.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next up.
We'll start with the ladies first on this question. As if someone was before you in court and their charge was disturbing the peace or trespassing, that it was because of a protest, whether they were in protest of someone's civil liberties being violated, if they stepped foot on a government or one of our national monuments or parks during a government shutdown, or an environmental protest. Do you factor that, or would you factor that in your decision in judiciating law?
Mr. Llewellyn, I'm sorry, but what you're asking me to do in a way is to give you an advisory opinion. And each case I have to consider on a case-by-case basis. So I'm sorry, but I'm just going to have to punt on this one.
Okay, so you would on a case-by-case basis?
Oh, I have to consider everything on a case-by-case basis.
That satisfies me.
Okay.
We have rights. I'm a strong supporter of our rights, but we also have a rule of law that we also have to respect. And so I agree, it would have to be on a case-by-case basis, but I don't think that you can excuse disobeyance of the law just because you ultimately have a good cause. You still need to respect the rule of law in how you proceed to advocate for yourself.
Okay. We're going to limit to the one question per panel, so I want to make sure we stay on time. One more question. Are you not asking any questions?
No, not.
Okay, so I apologize, Angie.
It's for both of you. I wanted to know your position on the issue of privacy and where the line is, and where the line is for the government's ability to, for example, spy on their own citizens, collect data, using all kinds of methods and technologies, and where is that line? Where do our rights stop and the government's interests should prevail?
Again, Mr. Lauer, I think what you're asking me to do is to give you an advisory opinion, and I can't do that. I have to look at these things on a case-by-case basis. So that's the answer I have to give you, is that I'd have to see what the case is and then make the decision.
I find it notable that one of the first cases that really dealt with the concept of privacy, because it's not in the Bill of Rights, it's not in the Constitution, is Casey versus Southwest Pennsylvania, the birth control case. And it's really a telling foundation for where this right is, from my perspective. I think that the critical question is where you have an expectation of privacy and where that is reasonable. And if you have a reasonable expectation, such as in your home, behind closed doors, with the curtains drawn, the government should respect that. And it's necessary and vital that right is protected. Now, if it's an unreasonable expectation, or if it's out in the open, then that may be a different issue.
Okay, thank you. In the interest of fairness, because I did not go over the rules prior, I did go over the rules prior, I just want to give Angie one more question, if that's okay with the rest of the panel, but in the future, let's stick with, make your one question to the candidates really good. Is that reasonable and fair?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Sorry, I just thought you had a fantastic question. I just want to clarify, so he was talking about the veterans, he was semi-talking about the veterans taking over the memorials during the shutdown, and that's a specific case. I'd like to know your specific opinion on that. If you had to deal with the veterans that went and took over their own war memorial during the government shutdown, and you were faced with trespassing charges on one of these veterans, how would you guys deal with that situation?
Honestly, I'm not familiar enough with that case to give you a specific answer. Please.
Can I elaborate? So basically what happened was during the government shutdown, they decided to take the memorials, including like the World War II Memorial and the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and shut them down. And what happens is they have these flights of freedom that bring these veterans to go see their memorial that were already scheduled, and they were being kept out of their own memorial for absolutely no reason. So just because the government was shut down, they barricaded it off. So what ended up happening was these veterans went and they stormed their own memorial, were removing barricades with their wheelchairs, trying to get to their own memorial, and they were all trespassed out in certain cases. So in that case, would you guys actually, if you had these veterans that were standing in front of you that just wanted to go and see their memorial, the one time that they had opportunity to and the government was shut down, what would you do in that situation?
And you're telling me there's actually prosecutors who would prosecute those veterans?
I'm saying that with that situation, if you had one of those people that were in your courtroom and they technically did break the law, they technically did trespass, this is kind of related to jury nullification and political or judicial activism, but in that situation, what would you do? Would you really hold those veterans accountable for those actions?
I'm just still trying to get over the fact that there's actually
Can we
prosecutors
make
who would
this a yes or
prosecute.
no? We're
Yeah.
already running late on
Sorry.
time, so real quickly, yes or no?
I don't know.
I would have to treat it on a case-by-case basis, but it's my understanding that the outside memorials, they did open up for the veterans. So that was my understanding. So I'd have to see what the facts are actually before I can make any decision on it. It's a little bit too vague for me, the questioning.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.